I think the days of pretty basketball are over.
It's fair.
And I think we got to stop looking for 09 Carolina. I think we got to stop looking for, Duke's back-to-back champions and playing pretty basketball and moving it around and looking great on offense. Just look at the NBA draft. Look at the players who are projected. The top 2 aren't in college basketball.
Yeah.
Right? So the old days of looking through it and going, oh, okay, I'm going to take this team because they're number 1 in offensive efficiency. I just don't think you can do that, especially this year. I think there's a lot of ugly basketball. Not in a bad way. It's what it is. The Big 12 was super athletic this year. I was super impressed with the Big 12 this year, but they're not going to wow you. They're not going to wow you. Houston's not going to wow you offensively either. And the team who turned out to be the best in the ACC was Duke, and they played their own brand of ugly basketball this year. So I like their path. Once they get to the Garden, and I think they will get to Madison Square Garden, I'm not picking against Duke in Madison Square Garden. So that's where I have to go. Joe was on to something here. Ovies was on Duke early, and I didn't believe it till I saw it with my own eyes. John Shire has done a heck of a job in his first year.
Here's my problem, and I'm going to need some people to talk me out of this. You reference feels like 83. Totally get why. I feel like it's 2010. Is that okay? And here's the reason why. I feel like with Duke and Carolina and the rivalry, things are so tied to each other. Last year's run for North Carolina is tied to Duke's demise in the last 2 games against them, Mike Krzyzewski's career, blah, 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 blah. We've talked about it for a year now. But let's not forget that we've seen this before in the Duke-Carolina rivalry, where once one program thinks like, we got you, whoopsies, there's a plot twist. And in 2009, this is where the context is important. In 2009, there was a similar sentiment that Roy Williams has come home. He just reeled off 2 national championships, and he just took Harrison Barnes, which was the prize recruit for Duke.
Recruit. Yep.
Mike Krzyzewski is involved with USA Basketball. Let's not forget that there were Duke fans who were convinced that he was not prioritizing Duke basketball. He was distracted.
Yeah, it was going to help recruiting. Hurt recruiting.
Which is hilarious in retrospect.
Because they didn't get John Wall from Raleigh, and then Kentucky was this monster out there. Number 1 most of that season. Carolina was supposed to lap them. Kentucky was now the true blue blood. And then who was the last team standing in 2010?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was Duke.
They did.
So I feel like a similar thing is happening where Coach K's career ends, people try to take that a bit further, saying like, oh man, like how does Duke recover from this? Well, looks like they've recovered just fine under John Shire in year 1, and it's Carolina who's going through an existential crisis. Well, in 2010 they went to the NIT and almost won the thing. Hubert Davis decided we're not going to the NIT. So that's where the whole feels like 2010 is coming into play. And by the way, this is not, it's not just 2010. I gave Roy Cooper a 1993 Coca-Cola, championship Coca-Cola, okay? And what was 1993 about for K? It was the inverse.
Same thing, because it was Duke winning 91, 92, K being on this Final Four 8-time and 10-year run, and you're like, oh my gosh, Duke's got Carolina's number. Dean Smith, the game's passed him by.
Right.
Then they win the title in 93, so you're right. And even Duke, after winning it in 10, then they start their one-and-done stees, right? Then you start really seeing these stars come to Duke. Then they win it in 15, and you're thinking, okay, Duke's got this thing. The very next year, Carolina, Marcus Page nearly win the national title. They all come back in 17, and they finish the job. So every time you think one's going to pull in front of the other, there's usually a push right back.
I'm not there yet, but if Duke gets to the Sweet 16, I will start using the hashtag feels like 2010.